Hello, my name is Pat Torpey. You might have heard of me from a band called Mr. Big. I was the drummer. And I've also done many sessions and tours throughout the world. And I'm here to help you to set up your new Tama drum set. So let's begin. In this video, you will see a representative sample of some of the most popular Tama Superstar and Swingstar prepackaged drum kits. Superstar and Swingstar offer a wide selection of drum setups which are subject to improvements and change without notice. So, you may have purchased a kit with drums and hardware that are different from the models shown. However, this video was designed for basic setup, so it will work with setting up any Tama Superstar, Swingstar, or Stage Star kit. If you want to confirm the contents of your kit, please contact your authorized Tama dealer. Depending on which Superstar set you purchase, the contents of the carton may vary. All Superstar 5-piece or 4-piece sets, regardless of the configuration, come with the following: 1 bass drum pedal, 1 hi-hat stand, 1 snare stand, 1 straight cymbal stand, 1 boom stand, 1 pair of wood hoops, 1 pair of Tama bass drum heads, 2 bass drum spurs, 1 Omniball double or single tom holder, 1 drum key, and 1 plastic pouch containing 16 bass drum tension rods with washers and 16 claw hooks. If your kit has a 16-inch floor tom, there will be another plastic pouch containing 16 tension rods with washers for the floor tom. If your kit has a 14-inch floor tom or a 14-inch suspended tom, there will be 12 tension rods with washers. These tension rods are slightly shorter than the bass drum tension rods. You also have 1 pair of 16 or 14-inch metal hoops and drum heads to go with the floor tom or suspended tom depending on which came with your set. Superstar SK, SX, or SL52 sets and SK, SX, or SL42 sets will have a package containing 3 floor tom legs. All the Superstar sets come with the StarCast mounting system, depending on the model. Superstar SK, SX, and SL52 sets will have 1 12-inch tom, 1 13-inch tom, 1 16-inch floor tom, 1 22-inch bass drum, and 1 5.5 by 14-inch snare drum. Superstar 52 sets have a StarCast mounting system for 2 mounted toms. Superstar SK, SX, and SL42 sets will have 1 12-inch tom, 1 16-inch floor tom, 1 22-inch bass drum, and 1 5.5 by 14-inch snare drum. The Superstar 42 set has a StarCast mounting system for 1 mounted tom. Superstar SK, SX, and SL52F sets have 1 10-inch tom, 1 12-inch tom, 1 14-inch tom, 1 22-inch bass drum, and 1 5.5 by 14-inch snare drum. Superstar SK, SX, and SL50F sets have 1 10-inch tom, 1 12-inch tom, 1 14-inch tom, 1 20-inch bass drum, and 1 5.5 by 14-inch snare drum. Because Superstar SK, SX, and SL52F sets and SK, SX, and SL50F sets include a suspended 14-inch tom rather than a floor tom, you will have the StarCast mounting hardware for 3 toms instead of 2 or 1. Each StarCast mounting system comes with 1 wrench for tightening all the nuts and bolts of the StarCast system. Superstar 52F sets and 50F sets also include 1 multi-clamp and 1 single tom holder for suspending the 14-inch tom from one of the cymbal stands. You will also find a copy of My Drums, which contains further information about setting up your drums. All SwingStar 5-piece sets, regardless of configuration, come with the following: 1 bass drum pedal, 1 hi-hat stand, 1 snare stand, 1 boom cymbal stand, 1 pair of AccuTune bass drum hoops, 1 pair of Tama bass drum heads, 2 bass drum spurs, 1 Omniball double tom holder, 1 drum key, and 1 plastic pouch containing 16 bass drum tension rods with washers. And there will be another plastic pouch containing 12 tension rods with washers for the 16-inch or 14-inch floor tom, or 14-inch suspended tom. These tension rods are slightly shorter than the bass drum tension rods. You also have 1 pair of 16-inch or 14-inch metal hoops and drum heads to go with your floor tom or suspended tom, depending on which came with your set. SwingStar 52H5 sets and 50H5 sets also have a package containing 3 floor tom legs. SwingStar SS52H5 sets have 1 12-inch tom, 1 13-inch tom, 1 16-inch floor tom, 1 22-inch bass drum, and 1 5.5 by 14-inch snare drum. SwingStar SS50H5 sets have 1 10-inch tom, 1 12-inch tom, 1 14-inch floor tom, 1 20-inch bass drum, and 1 5.5 by 14-inch snare drum. SwingStar SS52FH5 sets have 1 10-inch tom, 1 12-inch tom, 1 14-inch tom, 1 22-inch bass drum, and 1 5.5 by 14-inch snare drum. SwingStar SS50FH5 sets have 1 10-inch tom, 1 12-inch tom, 1 14-inch tom, 1 20-inch bass drum, and 1 5.5 by 14-inch snare drum. SwingStar 52FH5 sets and 50FH5 sets also include 1 multi-clamp and 1 single tom holder for suspending the 14-inch tom from the cymbal stand. All SwingStar prepackaged drum kits come with 1 pair of 14-inch hi-hat cymbals and 1 18-inch crash ride cymbal. You will also find a copy of My Drums, which contains further information about setting up your drums. If you find anything missing from your set, please contact your authorized Tama dealer where you bought your drums and notify them of what is missing. All right, what we're going to do first is we're going to set up the bass drum. So, what you have here is you have two drum heads. One is the logo, which goes on the front, and the other one is for the batter side, where the kick drum pedal goes. So let's start with this one first. Now this drum head is a self-muffling drum head, so when you put it on right out of the box, it's going to sound pretty good. Now you make sure you're putting it on the right side of the bass drum. What you do is here's your logo, Tama logo. That's the side where the bass drum, the batter side goes. Then you have 2 counter hoops. One is, according by this finish, one's a little dark, one's lighter. This the lighter one that goes on this side. You match it up with the finish. So we put that on, and then we have, it's got rubber on the inside here, and it also has a little rubber stop here. And you put 8 on each side. So we'll start these, and you just finger tighten them. Okay, so we got all 8 of the tuners on, claw hooks. Now we finger tighten them down. And what I like to do is just sort of press on the drum head like this. This helps the head to seat properly around the rim of the drum, just so it's all helps to start the tuning process of it. And you take your Tama logo head. Now what I like to do is get it nice and even so when the drum sets up, it looks really straight, because I don't like it to look sloppy. So then you take your counter hoop. Remember, this is the dark one. Put it on. And you sort of get the logo about where you think it's right. See, here's the tom holder. So I sort of put it right, sort of straight with that. Then you put your claw hooks on this. Okay, so now we got them all on there, all 8 of them. Just finger tighten them down. Not too tight, though. And then you want to put your drum spurs in. This helps the drum to stabilizes the drum, keeps it from moving when you're playing it. So what I do, set the drum up like this, and they go in like this. Put it in like this side, loosen this up, and then turn it this way, and then you sort of let the bass drum stabilize on its own, and then you don't tighten it too much because you want to adjust it when you get both of them in. Once again, make sure it sits in. There's little grooves in there that stabilize it and make it solid. So see, you don't tighten it yet, so you get it about right where you think it should be. And the bass drum sort of has its own place where it's going to stabilize. And then what I like to do is, once I get it there, then you take your drum key and you want to do the final adjustment. So I like to pull the bass drum back a little bit like this, and then tighten this side. Make sure this is tight. Pull the bass drum back just a little bit. Tighten this side. And then it's set up and ready to play. And also, these spurs have an adjustment down here. You can have the rubber on the floor to keep the bass drum from creeping forward, or like where you have a rug or something, you can screw this back like this, and then there's a sharp spike here that keeps the bass drum from moving. That's sort of a thing that drummers don't want to do. You want to keep your bass drum really stable and solid. Next, we're going to set up the floor tom. So, you've got 2 drum heads that come with your kit. One says Tama Powercraft on it. That's the head you want to use on the top where you hit. So what I like to do is you find your logo, which is right here, and make sure that you've set it up properly, because the legs have to be down here. So this is the top. And I like to set the logo with the logo on the drum head. Now you have 2 counter hoops, and they're both the same, so you just pick one, either one you want. Put it on the drum head, and when you put it on, make sure that these holes line up with the lugs. And you take your screws, and you just finger tighten these. Okay, so when you get all the screws in, you don't want to do the final tuning yet. You want to get both heads on. So turn it over. So you get all your screws in there. What I like to do is, once again, just sort of push on the head a little bit. Not too hard. Just push it down. It helps to make the head sit evenly on the rim of the drum shell. But you do your final tuning when we get all the drums together. Now the next thing, you have 3 floor tom legs. Put them in this side. Now they have little marks here that you can sort of figure out later where you want to set them, and that's so you can set them up the same way each time. You don't want to tighten this too much because you want to adjust it once you get all the drums together. And there's your floor tom. Now I'm going to show you how to set up your StarCast mounting system. This is for your rack toms. These are the tom-toms that are set up on top of your bass drum. This is the StarCast mounting system. What's really great about this is that it's been discovered that other mounting systems, sometimes they maybe drill holes in the side of the shell, and it's not so good for sound. And this makes the shell and the drum hang in a way that the drum really sounds good. So it's really great. So what you want to do is there's 3 screws here, these rubber screws. You unscrew these. Then you take the StarCast mounting system and put it underneath and line it up with these 3 holes on the rim. Then you put these back on, these screws. You can just sort of finger tighten them at first. And also when you put these screws on, make sure this sort of rounded side is down. Okay, now's the time. You sort of tighten them, but you don't have to tighten them too much because the rubber on the screws automatically sort of locks it. Then you put this into your drum mount on the bass drum, and that's how the StarCast mounting system works. Now we're going to start setting up the hardware. First you want to start with your snare stand. It comes in 2 pieces, and this is the base. This is the place to start. So you loosen this, spread it up a little bit, set it down. You don't want to tighten it too much because you're going to do a final adjustment when you get the whole drum set up. Then this is the second part. The place to start is loosen this, take it about straight like that, tighten it up a little bit just so it's stable, and then this goes through this hole here. Make sure this is loose, and just sort of set it. You're going to do your final adjustment when you set up the drums. And then this part you spread out like this, and this has a I guess you could call it, this is the adjustment for where the snare will set. The snare sits inside here. So you turn it down like this, so when you set the snare in, then you will tighten it back up. But one little tip, you don't want to tighten it too much, because sometimes if you tighten this too much on your snare, it'll choke the shell. Now we're going to set up our hi-hat stand. It comes in 2 pieces. Let's start with the base of it first. Pick it up. You loosen this screw here, and then take the 3 legs and set them out. Sort of let it sit where it sort of stabilizes itself. Then you don't tighten this too much, just finger tighten it. Then you want to set your footboard in. Now your footboard has 2 holes here, and this stabilizes the footboard. You put them in each hole like that. Okay? Now, the next thing you want to do is put the top in. But if you notice, the way this is set up, the clutch is in here. This is called the hi-hat clutch. And then the rod is in here. It's actually in there upside down, and that's so when you transport your drums, it protects this rod because you want to keep this rod nice and straight. So you keep it in there and then put this on this side to protect it. So then what you want to do is you take your rod, screw it into this. It has sort of a self-locking feature, so you just sort of make sure it's tight. Take the top part, set it in there. You want to just finger tighten and do the final adjustment when you set up the kit. This also has a memory lock here, and once you finally get the hi-hat set up the way you like it, you can adjust this down to lock into place so it sets up exactly the same way each time. This is for your top hi-hat cymbal. And just sort of put that on. When you put the cymbals on later, we'll do that. And I always like to keep this when I put the cymbals on away from me because then I won't hit it with the drumstick when I'm playing. Now there's a couple other adjustments on here that I want to make you aware of. First off, this is sort of a cymbal tilter. We'll tilt the bottom cymbal, so maybe you might want to have the hi-hats tilt towards you a little bit. You do that from under here. You screw that up and down. Also, these three legs will swivel. And what you do is, take your drum key, there's a little screw here, and you loosen that up. And this, we've got to loosen both. See, you can swivel this around. If you want to have a double kick pedal, maybe fit up inside here, or maybe if you have a cowbell or something, another pedal. And then one more adjustment is right here. And you lift this up, and what this does is it controls the tension of the spring inside here. So you just sort of lift this up, and then the higher this is, the little more tension you have on the spring. But you do that final adjustment once you get your cymbals on there. And that's the tom hi-hat stand. Okay, let's set up our cymbal stands now. It comes with two cymbal stands. One is a boom stand, one is a straight stand. This is the boom stand. So we'll start with the bass. You want to loosen this screw here. Take the three legs, spread them out. Not too wide, just so they're nice and stable. Finger tighten that. Then you take this piece. This goes into this hole. Loosen this. And a great feature about this hardware, it has this sort of rubberized sleeves in here. So you don't have to tighten up too much. Just tighten it. It holds really, really solid. Now, you take this piece and rise it up a little bit. That's what I would say to do. And there's a hole here. Now, the great thing about this stand, I really like, is that this can be a straight stand, because this fits right down in here. Or you take this out, loosen this screw, and turn this a little bit like that. Then it goes into the hole. Now it's a boom stand, and this is really great for if you want to get your cymbals in closer to you, anywhere you want to put them. It's very convenient to get the cymbals exactly where you'd like them. And there's also a new feature on this Superstar hardware, on this top part that tilts the cymbal. This is something that really makes Tama hardware the best, is because you can get this at any angle you want. There's no restriction. There's no little teeth in here. It's just any angle you'd like. And you tighten it, but you don't have to tighten it too much. It's very solid and really strong. And that's your boom stand. Now let's set up the straight stand. Once again, start with the bass. Loosen this. Spread the three legs. And I want to say one thing about all these Tama stands is they have these really great rubber feet on them that are very stable. Because when you're playing drums, there's a lot of vibration, a lot of moving around and shaking, and this really keeps the stands and hi-hat right where you want it. Take the second piece, put it through here. Then you have an adjustment here if you want to go a little bit higher. Then you loosen this. Maybe straighten this out. You do your final adjustment when you get your cymbal on there. And that's your straight stand. Let's set up your kick drum pedal. So the first thing you want to do is turn it this way because you want to set your spring. Pick the spring up like this and pull it up over this plastic sleeve right here. And then you want to adjust this later when you decide how you want to have your pedal feel. So see, that's how the spring works there. Now you take your beater. Now the beater has two sides to it. It has a felt side, and then it has the hard side. This is a little more of a sharp sound, and this is a little more of a duller sort of thud. So you have to decide which one you want. Put it in this hole. Take your drum key, and there's a little screw here. You tighten it up. And it's ready to go. All right, now we're going to hook up the kick drum pedal on the bass drum. But before you do that, maybe you should tune up the batter head a little bit. Take your drum key and sort of start tightening the screws. Now what I like to do is go across from each other. That way you don't get any wrinkling in the head. You don't want to do it too tight, but you don't want to do it too loose because you don't want, I never want to have any wrinkles in the drum head. So just do it sort of in between. It gets a good sound. Then you want to put your drum pedal on, and there's a screw under here. You loosen this up. Not all the way. Make sure you don't do it too much because it'll fall out. Lift your bass drum up like this. Then you slip this like this onto the rim. Then you tighten the screw. Now the next thing I would do is adjust the beater. What I like to do is have the beater hit pretty much right in the center of the bass drum. I think you get the best sound from it. So take your drum key, loosen up this screw, put it up against the head like that, sort of see where it's landing. So get it about in the center and then tighten it. And you want to tighten that up pretty good because it's a very common thing for that to get loose. So make sure it's nice and tight because the bass drum pedal moves a lot. Then you want to tune your front head, same way as the back head. Not too tight, not too loose, get all the wrinkles out of it. And then you'll have a good bass drum sound. Next step, I'm going to put the snare on the snare stand and position it next to the bass drum. So take the snare stand, and I like to set the base of it like this, where one of the 3 feet are set up sort of right in here. That's what I like to do, because then it stays out of the way of your pedal. Now this is sort of like what you would call the snare basket. This is where the snare drum sits in. Now you notice here this is sort of touching the bass drum rim here. So what you do, take your drum key, loosen this, and see now you can set this in a way where it doesn't hit the other drums. It's really a nice feature of the Thomas snare stand. So I like to sort of get it like that. It's out of the way here, and it'll hold the snare really stable. So you tighten this up. Now make sure this big screw here is loose. You turn it clockwise. So this is wide, so you can set the snare down on top here. take your snare, set it in there. Now what I like to do is sort of up to you, but I like to keep this over here on this side because it's very convenient to turn it on and off with my left hand. So I like to keep it in this position. So get the snare in there, then start tightening under here and make these sort of just come up and touch the rim, just so they're touching. You don't want to tighten it too much because it'll choke the snare shell a little bit. So that's pretty good. Then you can set the height of the snare drum by unscrewing here, loosening this, and you can set the whatever height you like. That's about right. That's the snare drum. Now let's set up the hi-hat stand. Sort of position it. Okay, now you want to put your cymbals on the hi-hat. So you loosen this up, take this off. Now a pair of hi-hats usually come with the cymbals that are marked top and bottom. So you want to put your bottom cymbal on the bottom. Make sure it sits in there on the felt. And you take your top cymbal and you take your hi-hat clutch. You unscrew the bottom. There's two felts on here. Take the bottom one off, and the cymbal goes between the two felts, like that. Then you put the felt back on, and you put the screw back on. You want to sort of tighten this up pretty good because you don't want it to come off while you're playing. Then put this on here, and you sort of leave a space. Maybe it's up to you, whatever you want to do. I usually leave about maybe a half an inch, and then you get a good open as well as a closed sound. And then once you get your cymbals on, this is a good time to adjust the spring tension down here, because the weight of the cymbals will actually influence the tension of that spring. So that's how I set up my hi-hat. Okay, now what I want to do when I'm setting up the drum set, I want to set the hi-hat, the snare, and the kick drum they're sort of the basic foundation of the drum set for contemporary music and the way I play. So I sit down and I set my drum stool at a nice height that feels good to me. Everybody has a different idea of what's good for them. I sort of set it to where my leg is parallel with the floor, which is good for me. Maybe if you're taller, you might want to set it higher. If you're shorter, maybe a little lower. I am sort of a low rider. I like to sit very low. So then I bring the hi-hat in to where my feet feel comfortable on the pedals. And the height of the snare drum feels good, like where the stick would land. Now on the hi-hat, it's a little high for me, so I adjust this down. And the hi-hat has a memory lock here, and I get the hi-hat where I think would be a good height. Loosen this up, set it down. That seems about right for playing. So then I tighten this screw, then I loosen up this memory lock and set it down there. So the next time I set up my hi-hat, this will be exactly the same height. Then I push this down a little bit, screw this in, and that's now ready to play. And even without the tom-toms, you can play, this is a basic foundation for playing drums. You can play a groove with just these three pieces of your drum set. Now I'm going to put on the tom-tom holder on the kick drum. This is for double tom-toms, and it has a lot of adjustments. So the first thing you want to do is put this into the hole in the bass drum. So you loosen this screw, put this in here. Now this has a memory lock on it also, but you don't want to adjust that yet until you get your toms on and you do your final adjustment. So get that on the bass drum, tighten this up, make sure it's stable. Now you want to put your toms on here, and that goes here. So you make sure this is loose, put it through the hole. Now this has a memory lock on it also here. We're going to adjust that a little later. So just sort of finger tighten this so it's stable. Same thing with your next tom. Put it through the hole. Tighten it up. And loosen this one here. Now this will be able to make so you can change the angle of the tom-toms. So you loosen that up, but you want to hold it. See, I'm holding it with my left hand as I loosen because you don't want it to drop. So then I sort of angle it down, what I think is sort of comfortable. Tighten it. Same thing. Hold it with your hand here. Loosen this here. Angle it down. Tighten it. And that's how you get your two tom-toms on there. And I'll do a basic final adjustment when I get everything together. Now we're going to set the floor tom in with the rest of the toms in the snare. So you pick it up, move it over here. Now what I like to do is have the logo be facing out forward. It's just something that I like to do. So right now it's a little high because I like to sort of make it even with where the snare is. So I hold it here with one hand and loosen up the leg, let it down. Hold it, always holding it because otherwise it'll fall down. You want to loosen the other one, maybe come down a little bit. Loosen the other one back here. And that's about right. Good place to start. Just like that. And the next thing I'm going to do is tune the drums. I'm going to show you a little bit about tuning. The first drum I would probably tune is the snare drum. So to tune the snare drum, I would turn the strainer off so I can have it sound like a tom-tom. Take a drumstick, and what I do is I get it all finger tight, and then I start tightening it down across each side till it gets pretty tight. Then I go around with the stick just tapping it to make sure there's sort of an even sound. One's not way high and the other one's low. There's no wrinkles. And I keep it fairly tight because it's the snare and it has to have a nice crack to it. The bottom head on the snare is fairly tight also. I really keep it tight, make sure it's even all around, there's no wrinkles. And then I turn the snare back on. And there's an adjustment here where you can adjust the strainer underneath. I sort of keep it sort of medium. If it's too tight, then the snare is sort of choked. And if it's too loose, then it doesn't sound so good either. So I get it sort of medium. And that's a good place to start. Then the next thing I would do is tune my kick drum. So what I do with the kick drum is it's it's not real tight. I like to keep it, if anything, more loose than tight, because the kick drum's sort of the only drum where you might want to have it not ring. It has to have a nice, good, solid boom to it. And so unlike the snare or the toms, it's just a little different character. That's why we have the self-muffling drum heads on the bass drum. So I would just go around, make sure, I do it like this. I always move the snare over a little bit and lean it against my leg. And just so go around each screw. It's sort of for me, I feel like, is it feel about the same? Is the tightness about the same? And I make sure I look around and see there's no wrinkles in the bass drum. As long as there's no wrinkles in it and it's fairly stable, then it's a pretty good sound. Now the front head, what I usually do is the same thing. Is on all the kick drum and the tom-toms, I tune both heads about the same. That's my method of doing it. So now I want to work on the tom-toms. And I would, same thing with the snare, to tune the toms though, I'd recommend tuning the snare off, because then you can hear the toms a little bit better. So I would just get them to where they're sort of even all the way around. Same thing with the bottom head. Now, to tune the bottom head, I would take the drum off, probably set it in my lap, and make sure it's fairly even, and then put it back on, and then do the final check. Same thing with the other rack tom. And usually when you have, what I do is tune the drums. This one's a little bit higher, this one's a little bit lower, and this one's even lower. So it goes this way. And that's sort of a real common standard way to do it. So from then on, you're just about ready to start playing. You just got to get your cymbals and cymbal stands up. The next thing I'm going to do is put my cymbal stands in with the kit. So you have a straight cymbal stand and a boom. Now what I would suggest to do is use the straight stand on this side, where you can put a crash cymbal, and the boom stand over on this side, where you might want to put a ride that you can use as a ride and a crash, because the boom stand makes it so you can get in a little bit better angle here for your the way you want to play. So I sort of get this where I think it might be, and I'll do the final adjustment when I sit down. And I put the cymbal on. You unscrew this top. It's 2 felts. You want to put the cymbal in between the felts. Make sure that it's touching only the plastic, because you don't want to be touching metal, because the metal against metal is not good. It'll rub the cymbal wrong and ruin your cymbal. So you put the other felt on top, and you put this so this side is down. That makes it so the cymbal is able to swing freely, because it'll sound better when it's able to do that. Then on the boom stand, take this off, take the felt off. You want to put your ride cymbal on here. Put the screw on. This seems a little bit high, so I'd lower it. Make sure you hold underneath the cymbal with your other hand, because it's going to be heavy. So when you loosen this up, it doesn't just drop. So maybe about right there is good. And then what I usually do is I'll sit down first, then I can sort of tell where the cymbals need to be. Like, see this one maybe a little closer. You can change the angle, like here. Maybe change it a little bit like that, whatever feels comfortable to you. And then maybe this one's a little too close. So change it a little bit. And all these things, this is just the way I do it. What you need to do is find what's comfortable for you, depending on how the size of your arms and how long your sticks are and all these different things. That will tell you where you want to set everything. So this feels about right. So then I pick up the sticks and I might start playing a simple groove. I want to talk about the grip. There's two sort of grips. One's a matched grip, when both hands are the same, and the other one is like a traditional grip, which is where the left hand, if you're right-handed, would play like a little different sort of a thing. So first, let's start with your right hand. You start with the stick between your index finger and your thumb. And you find a good place where it's balanced. You don't want to get too far up here because that's hard to play. And if you're too far up here, that's hard to play. You find a good place to start. Then what I do is I keep all my fingers behind here, and I sort of keep it in the middle of my hand. And see, you have a really good wrist action that you can really make the stick work for you this way. Now, there's another way. Sometimes there's a timpani style where your thumb is sort of up like this. There's a lot of drummers that use that. I use sort of both. As I go around the toms, sometimes if I'm moving around the toms like this, my hand turns over. But for the most part, I keep my wrist in this position with all my fingers on the stick for the most control. And in a matched grip, you do the same thing with your left hand. You start with your thumb and your index finger like this. Same thing. Just you get that nice, sort of a natural, easy way to play. It should feel natural to you, whatever you do. Find the most natural feeling. Now, the traditional grip is where you have a different. This grip is more associated with jazz playing, although there are some drummers that really can hit really hard with it. I use it for more jazz and swing. So you start with the stick, find a good balance. You start with the stick between the thumb and the index finger. And then it sort of sits between your second and third finger like this. And then you sort of hold it like this. Not very tight. You just let the stick do the work. And for me, when I'm playing like a swing, jazz, it has a good feeling to it. And I've also worked out a way where if I want to, I can get to a matched grip very quickly, or back to traditional. And that's just something that I've worked out over time. It's going to take a little time if you want to do that, but you can see I go back and then forth. So that's the two main grips, but I would suggest if you're a beginner, you start out with a matched grip, because it's a good way to start to feel natural right away. I want to talk about a technique that I use on my kick drum pedal. I also use it on the hi-hat. It's called heel toe. And the best way to, well, just to show you, that's the best way to describe it. One beat I get is from my heel. I sort of push it down on the pedal like this. And then the next beat is from my toe, which I push down like this. So together, it's 1, 2. So what this technique allows me to do is to hit like eighth notes very quickly, like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, and with the kick drum. And I'll show you, like if I was to count 1, 2, 3, 4. This is a technique that takes a lot of time to develop because you have to strengthen your muscles in your lower leg. So the first time you try it, it might not sound very strong, but over time you can develop it and use it in beats all over the place. I use it in many, many different ways. And most of the time my heel is on the 1 and my toe is on the backbeat or and, like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Now you can also use this on the hi-hat. It gives a different sort of sound, and your heel opens the hi-hat and your toe will close the hi-hat. So it will be heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe. So if you do it quickly, it has like you're playing the hi-hat with the stick, but you're playing with your foot. So if you go 1, 2, 3, 4. Both these techniques take a lot of time to develop, but over the years I've used them in many different recordings and songs and styles, and it really helps to give you a lot of confidence with your feet. And so basically it's up to you to put the time in to learn how to do this. But if you get it down, you'll really be glad that you did. Okay, let's get started. Let's play a beat. The best place to start, I think, is with the hi-hat, the snare, and the kick drum. We're going to play a simple, straight sort of rock beat, mid-tempo. Just make it simple when you first begin. Go like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now this next beat I want to talk about is a very important part that people use this all the time in music, and it's what I would call a shuffle. So we're going to do a shuffle in a very simple way for you when you first start to learn how to play a shuffle. The kick drum is just going to be on the beat. 1, 2, 3, 4. But what's most important is what you do with your hands on the hi-hat and the snare. So let me show you. 1, 2, 3, 4. See, that is a little different feel than the straight beat. It's sort of based on a triplet feel, but you find that in many, many different styles of music. A lot of rock and roll and really cool blues music. So that's a good one and a good place to start. Another beat I want to talk about is real commonly used in a lot of contemporary music. It's what I would call a 16th note on the hi-hat type of a beat, where you're playing 16th notes on the hi-hat, like 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and those are 16th notes. So the best way to tell you is to show you. So I'll show you. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, as you can see, while I was playing the beat, I started to get a little more creative with the kick drum. My hands kept doing the same thing. So it's up to you to experiment and get as creative as you want to be. Start simple, and then as you get more comfortable, you can get more creative. All right, I'm going to talk about some fills. A really good place to start with a fill, it's one of the fills that I learned when I was just beginning to play drums, is what I call a triplet with the bass drum fill. It's basically like this. It's right, left, kick drum. It's a triplet. 1, 2, 3, the kick drum. So I'll show you how that goes. Now, if you use that fill in a beat, you can see how it'll work. I'll show you. 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's a good place to start. That fill is something you can use in many, many different applications and during many different ideas, but it's one that you can make sound good very quickly.